Namaste. This is Yoga Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Shira Cohen, yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic wellness educator. In these conversations with experts in the field of yoga therapy, you'll find out what it is and how it can help you and your loved ones to reclaim well-being. We'll touch on physical as well as mental health, physiology, emotions, women's health, spiritual well-being, goddesses, and self-development in the fullest sense. Listening to another story can change ours, so thank you for showing up, and let's begin this journey together. So hello everyone, today we are here with Anodea Judith. I always want to say Judith Anodea, but it's Anodea Judith. And I'm so excited and so grateful, and it's a real delight that you're on the podcast. And so Anodea, is very well known. She's the author of many chakra books. One of my favorites is Eastern Body, Western Mind. And you've written 8 books, I believe.
Oh, 9 or 10. It depends on who you count.
Okay. And she's going to tell us about her new deck of cards of the archetypes. She has a master's in clinical psychology, a PhD in human health. And so I'm very, very happy that you're here. Thank you, Anodea.
Thank you so much, Shira. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I was really surprised, for me, it was like a big jump to reach out and ask you onto the podcast, because I thought you would be just so busy. I thought you have to ask anyway. So I did.
Yeah, well, great. Wonderful. Let's have fun.
Yeah. So tell us your yoga story. I'm sure it's a very long time ago, but how did you get to yoga, and why did you choose, like, as a clinical psychologist, to follow that path?
Well, I started in yoga in 1975.
Okay, I was born.
Yeah, longer than, some of the people in my classes have been alive. And back then, yoga was just something that happened in people's living rooms on towels. There wasn't even sticky mats yet. And there weren't yoga teacher trainings yet. There was just some very esoteric practice, but I went to a class and I loved it. And then I bought a couple books and I started teaching myself out of books and doing it in my little upstairs attic. And I was so excited about what I was learning that people said, well, show me what you're doing. And so I showed them a few poses and they said, well, why don't you do a class? And so I started teaching, and I organized my classes along the organizational pattern of the chakras. And the rest is history. And of course, I had no training or right to be teaching at that time, because there wasn't any trainings. But, later on, I went and got trainings along the way. It started way back then.
And how come you did it along the map of the chakras?
Well, I would say the chakras chose me. I didn't choose the chakras. They chose me. It just was my life's path.
How come? Tell me how you felt that they chose you.
Well, the first time I read the word, this shot of energy went through me.
Oh, wow.
And then one time in meditation, I had my one and only out-of-body experience. I've not had it before or since, where I was above my body and I was sitting there in meditation position. And there was a book on my lap. I could see, sitting on my lap, and it was a book on the chakras by me.
Oh, wow.
And so, and then I knew that's what I had to do. And I was all prepared to go off to art school in New York City. I had, done all my drawings for my application, and they were all on my desk. And I had that vision, and I completely changed courses. And I didn't go to art school, and I started writing Wheels of Life, and the rest is history.
Wow, beautiful. Very, very compact, that history.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've had out-of-body experiences, and one was the first time I was also sitting in meditation on a little trampoline. I was 12 and I read about it somewhere, and I thought, I'm going to try this. And I sat there, meditated, and then I went out of my body. But as soon as I was thinking, oh, I'm out of my body, I shot back in. That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. So let me see. So for you, why is working with the energy? Because your book Charge is a lot about the energy in this current that you just spoke about, that you experience? Why is energy so essential to working with ourselves when we want to transform and move to the next state?
Yeah. Well, I've taught workshops for decades all
Mm-hmm.
over the world. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, in my workshops, people raise their hand and they ask questions. And they ask questions about themselves. Why do I do this? Why can't I sleep at night? Why do I have restless legs? Why do I get a tummy ache? Why do I get a sore throat? Why isn't my heart open? The typical questions that are really the same no matter what country I'm teaching in. It's just we all have the same problems. And I found that my answers involved having to teach them all about energy, and which I call charge, in
Mm-hmm.
order to answer their question. Well, you see, when that happens as a child, that brings up a lot of charge in your body, which is, meant to help you survive, but because you couldn't express it, it gets blocked, and then it gets blocked in the different chakras, but it can get blocked too much or too little. I mean, there was so much to understanding it that I decided to write a whole book on it.
But is the wheel of life not also then about the charge?
Oh, well, it is. It's about the chakras. I would say The Wheels of Life, the first book, which in Dutch was the Chakra book, um, is the philosophy of the chakra system.
Okay.
Eastern body, Western mind is the psychology of the chakra system.
Yeah, I really love that.
Thank you. Yeah. And charge in the energy body is really the psychology of our energy. It's really energy
Ah,
psychology,
ah,
how the flow or the blockage of energy creates who we are.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And when I read your book, I was going through this whole process of, I was in a burnout, and at the same time, perimenopause just started and I didn't know it was happening. So there was lots of this emotional stuff. And I was already a yoga therapist, Ayurvedic wellness educator. I've been doing meditation since I'm a child, but nothing was working. And your
Mhm.
book really helped me understand things. And then I realized, yeah, we can even use Ayurveda and the concepts of the 5 elements to
Sure.
understand the charge, and therefore use yoga practices in a way that you can regulate yourself very quickly in these kind of very intense moments where you feel you're out of control, basically.
Right. Even the doshas in Ayurveda, the kapha, pitta, and vata can be seen as where someone holds charge or doesn't hold charge. The
Mm,
vata holds it up in their head, and the
mm,
kapha holds it down in their body, and then
mm.
the pitta, who's the high energy, is always
Throwing it
spending
out.
it.
Yeah.
They're always using it. They're always spending it. They're the big
Throwing
spenders.
it at other people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that one. It's funny. That's why I love having these conversations, because everyone has a different viewpoint that makes this facet of the diamond, no? The wheel of life. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So thank you. Okay. So tell us about overcharge and undercharge.
Okay. So when it comes to energy, most people want more, but we have more anxiety than we do depression in the world.
Mm.
More people suffer from anxiety by about 3 to 1, mostly in the US, but worldwide. And so anxiety is really having too much charge. You have all this energy and you don't know what to do with it.
Mm.
And the word actually means to choke or constrict. So what
Oh.
it means is the body is held and constricted, and then the energy pushes up against it, and it's very intense. And
Mm.
that is anxiety because a person doesn't know how to express it. When they express it, they come back into balance.
Mm-hmm.
Depression is not having enough energy.
Mm.
It's I can't get out of bed, I can't get anything done, I feel so depressed. It's not just a pervasive sadness, but it's also an energy problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to learn how to regulate your charge, then you can stay more in balance. And when I take that into the chakras, as you know from Eastern Body, Western Mind, I talk about excessive chakras and
Mm-hmm.
deficient chakras.
Yeah.
Chakras that have too much, that's where we're fixated, that's where we're always doing something. Or
Mm.
chakras that have too little, that's where we're avoiding. Oh, I don't want to go there.
Mm.
I don't want to open my mouth and speak up because somebody might think I'm stupid, or I don't want to feel all those feelings that I've shut off.
Mm.
So those would be create a deficient chakra, which is too little energy.
Can it also be like an underdevelopment when we're talking about too little charge, underdevelopment of that chakra or those,
Yeah,
yeah, qualities?
absolutely. Yeah. You
Okay.
know, in the upper chakras, some people are overdeveloped, they live in their heads, but many people are underdeveloped. They have no meditation practice, they have no, spiritual understanding, and so they haven't really developed those higher centers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I listened to a podcast where you were talking about um, manifesting. And this is one thing I also found out during this phase of me having this kind of complete change. It was kind of like the dark night of the soul for me because just everything crashed. And then I realized that my spiritual practice wasn't the way I was doing it. It was very patriarchal, like we have to transcend, we have to give up our ego and be selfless and all this kind of thing where you don't function in this world, which is now the 22nd century or the 21st century. And we need to have an ego. We need to be strong in ourselves. So transcendence isn't the way forward when we're not living in an ashram, Yeah.
Right.
And so I
And,
really love this fact that you were saying, so how do we now manifest? How do we use the same spiritual practice and the chakras to actually bring things into life?
yeah. So the transcendence, the what I call the current of liberation, which goes from first chakra up to seventh, goes all the way up. That is an important path, and it has been for, millennia since, people first started writing about it in India, thousands of years ago. Um, and when we are so materially based, that's an important place to go. But the last 40 or 50 years, there's been this great spiritual revolution with everyone going into yoga and meditation and all that. And if you look at the world today, it hasn't helped much.
I was going to say, I felt, just before COVID, I was thinking, wow, humanity's really surpassing our dogmas and these patriarchal systems. But then it's just like, oh my God, all the darkness is just creeping out really
I know, I know. So
strongly.
I think it's time that we harvested or used that higher consciousness that we've been developing
Mhm.
to create a vision, to communicate that vision, to bring it into our relationships and into the world,
Well,
to give it power, to, bring it
move
together
it
and
forward.
manifest it in the
Yeah.
world. So we need people with higher consciousness to be manifesting. And they're so busy sitting on their cushion and floating off that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, as we say in the US, and especially happening in the US. And
No, it's everywhere. It's finally starting to happen. A lot of people in Europe and other places, we would laugh about America, how terrible it is, but now it's happening everywhere. Like these big lobbies and huge companies are just infiltrating governments and
yeah,
politicians.
and then we
And
have
it's
this terrible
rampant.
war going on between Russia
Yes.
and Ukraine, and it's messing up everything. So all over
Yeah.
the world. But so,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, I just think people need to manifest. They need to manifest the higher consciousness, bring it into business, bring it into teaching, bring it into our healthcare system, bring it into our body. So
Mm,
that's the downward current. And it begins with it begins with an idea. Oh,
mm,
I have an idea. I would like to create something. Could be what you want to make for dinner. It could be me writing another book. It could be a business. And then you imagine it. Okay, what would that look like? How many clients do I want? How much money do I want to make? What would the office look like? Then you talk about it to people, here I'm doing this, and you write your advertising and you put it out, your website, all your communication. You find the right people to do it with, and the right people could be customers or clients, or it could be coworkers or a coach or a mentor or a banker or a real estate agent. Then you make your task of things to do. I've got to do this and do that. And you start to get things in momentum. And when they start to move, you get really passionate. Oh, it's happening, it's working.
yes.
And
Yes.
then you've got that momentum to carry you all the way down into manifestation. So
Mm.
we have a whole course on that we just launched yesterday online called The Art of Masterful Manifestation,
Oh,
based
wow.
on the book, our book, Creating on Purpose. So I did it
Wow.
with my friend Lion Goodman. It's a dynamic, self-paced video course, so you can buy it and keep it. And 10, I think there's 30 videos of 5 to 10 minutes each.
Wow. Oh, that's good. That's really bite-sized, isn't it?
Bite-sized, yeah.
Yeah. And then
And you
there's
can do it at your own
PDFs and
pace.
everything, I imagine, too.
Yep,
Yes.
PDFs and exercises and
Oh, great.
videos of the exercises and things like that. So
Oh, wonderful. Amazing. Yes, we need that so much. And that was my realization too. Is like, okay, I've got to get over this hurdle of business is bad. It's
that's
also
right.
learning to find that business can be a service, and this is the heart chakra is also about serving people and bringing that gift into the world from your deepest desires.
Yeah.
Oh.
The heart chakra is the element air. So I have a saying that what serves the greater good puts
Mhm.
the wind in your sails.
Oh, that's lovely. Wow, that's beautiful.
Because I think, the
Yeah.
universe, when we're serving something larger than ourselves, then there's an assistance we get from,
Mhm.
just the way things happen. It says, yeah, I'm going to help you.
Yes. Yeah, but I really feel that's happening right now in the world too. That
Yeah.
there's this shift happening. Even when I walk outside, there's extra light shining and things just seem to be more beautiful. It's like the worlds are kind of, what do you call it? Dispersing. There's this dissolution starting to happen between material, spiritual, psychological, and that more potential is there for change.
What we really need is integration of the
Hmm.
spiritual and the material,
Yes, yes.
the inner and the outer, the mind and body, heaven and earth, masculine, feminine, light and shadow. We need integration of all of those.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
chakra system is a system for integration.
Yeah. And I think the chakra system is really important because it also gives you, it makes the spiritual or psychological something tangible, something that you can connect to and go, okay, that's what's happening here. It's like this hub where you can find a reflection point, and from that reflection point, you can feel into the world and come back to that place and see
It's
the
a map.
progress. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
describe it as a map,
yeah.
and if you're trying to go someplace, you're trying to go from here to there, you can say, well, I'm just going to head in that direction, but it's going to take you a long time to get there.
Because
But if
there's
you
no
have a
specific.
map
Yeah,
and it says, take this highway and this street and turn left here and turn right there, then you're going to get there more quickly. So the
yeah.
chakra system is a map.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you how the human psyche works, how it works in your nervous system, how human history works, how your childhood works. It's a
Mm.
master map to many, many different levels of our personal and our collective being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I found it was also a map to the emotions and the hormones.
Yeah,
Because you were talking
that's
about the emotions a lot, and then I started looking because I'm in the chemical world. That I was busy with chemistry in high school, and I found that very interesting. And then I started to realize, okay, but emotions also affect our endocrine system, and therefore, if we can understand what's going on chemically, we can also affect it much more easily. So I found that
And
was,
emotions are a charge. So when
yes,
you block an emotion, like, oh, somebody told you you cry too much, so you better not cry, and you block that, then that builds up in the body as a block in the body. And it
yeah.
might build up in the throat chakra because you can't express, or it might build up in the belly. It can be all different things, but when the emotion is blocked, so is the life force energy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's supposed to flow, no? Life is movement
And
and
so is our
stagnation.
capacity. Yeah, and so is our capacity for pleasure, because
Yes,
emotions and pleasure are both part of the second chakra.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then for me, I did this like deep dive into the emotional world, and I found like the mother of emotions is bliss, and we can get closer to it by developing each chakra fully. And
Yeah.
then, yeah,
And bliss in many ways is the free flow of energy between
mm,
inside and outside.
yeah,
Just
male,
one with
female.
everything. And there's no blockage between what comes in and what comes out, and we're in a safe
Yeah, because
place. And
it's all
just
one.
yeah, that's that experience of oneness, but it's an energetic experience. It's
Mm.
not an intellectual experience.
No,
It's
no, no.
energetic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So good. Um, Okay, yeah, I would like to talk about this. You spoke about the dance of charge when we're dealing with or working with trauma. Could
Mhm.
you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so trauma is so common among everyone. We just, for generations, people didn't realize what they were doing to children when they hit them or yelled at them or, sexual abuse or all kinds of things that can happen to children that are traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma isn't defined by the event so much as it is by the nervous system's ability to respond to that event. So if you're a little child and your father is yelling at you and your father is, way tall compared to where you are down here as a little child, that alone can be traumatic, let alone if you get hit or anything else that happens. And what happens in the body is the charge shoots through the roof. It just goes way up whenever you're in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a biological response so that you can run away or fight off your attacker. It's just the body is hardwired for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens. But a little child has no place to run, and they're too little to fight off somebody bigger than they are. Could be a bully at school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they can't spend that charge, so it gets locked up in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And because the charge of trauma is so intense, it gets locked up in a high charge state, but a high charge state that is locked up in your throat or in your legs or in your belly or in your head. Um, and when that is locked up, it's no longer available, but it will come out in symptoms, which we call post traumatic stress syndrome or PTSD. And those symptoms can be fears, they can be, health problems, they can be aches and pains, they can be, unproductive behaviors, they can be addictions,
Yeah.
So the charge that's
Mm-hmm.
locked up, goes in places you don't want it to go, and yet at the same time, it's not available to you. And so we call it a trauma vortex, a high charged energy that's trapped. And so to heal trauma, you really have to tap into that vortex and let the charge flow again. But it's very tricky because when you do, someone can get re traumatized by being flooded with that same sense of helplessness. And so you have to do it very, very slowly, like a pressure
Gentle,
cooker,
yeah, gentle steps.
Yeah, little gentle steps relieving it. And then you get to the place where the charge is so small, you can open it wide up without risking that overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, also why it's so important now that to verbalize, and I think that's why talk therapy has been so used, because it is a decharge.
Yeah,
And yeah, but it can work inversely if the person isn't ready. And I think another thing that came into my head was, yeah, if we do spiritual practices, we're strengthening all the other chakras so that when we maybe open that traumatized chakra, we're more able to handle the charge than if we are totally unprepared.
that's exactly right. Yeah. And the free flow of energy is quite something to tolerate if you're not
Yes.
ready for it.
Yeah.
When people have Kundalini awakenings, which is like turning on the full force of the charge, if the nervous system has not been prepared through the practice of yoga or meditation or just cleaning up your psychological issues,
Yeah.
then it can be very uncomfortable ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I've seen it happen to a lot of people. Like, I know friends or family who've had these kind of enlightening experiences, but because they're not prepared, it's actually damaging rather than healing. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have to shut it down in order to,
Yeah, and they
tolerate.
become afraid, and then all these chronic diseases start to develop because they can't place it anywhere. It just moves
Mhm.
around in the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, in your understanding, because I had a conversation last week with someone, and they said that the linking chakras to emotions or emotions to chakras is something that Jung developed, and that if you look in the texts of yoga, ancient texts, that it's they don't talk about emotions. I disagree because I learned it from the Ayurvedic sense. If you even Vasant Lad, he speaks about the mama points, and he says working with your mama therapy is like doing emotional laundry because you're
Yeah.
releasing the charge. So I tend to disagree with that analysis. But what do you think? Why do you think emotions are linked to chakras? How do you see that?
Well, Jung did talk about the chakras. He wrote one book on it, but he didn't really talk about the emotions so much. So I don't
Okay.
know where the person got that, but
Okay.
and he talked mostly about the first six because he thought the seventh chakra was too abstract for people, and so he wanted to keep people down here. Um, I would say it's not just the emotions that get trapped. I put emotions in largely in the second chakra. So that's really just talking about one chakra.
Okay.
But let's say in the third chakra, you want to take action. You want to do something. And emotions can lead to that. Oh, this doesn't feel good. Let me do something to make it
About it.
change.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it's going in the world. Let me do something to make changes for the better.
Mhm.
Um, that's action. And when that action gets blocked, maybe as a child you were punished for taking some sort of action, or you were ridiculed. Oh, she's so stupid. What did she do that for? You don't feel like I want to take action, but I don't know what to do. Then
Mhm.
the action gets blocked. That's third chakra.
Mhm.
In the fifth chakra, our communication can get blocked. I want to say something. I'm afraid people might think I'm stupid, so I don't want to open my
Say
mouth.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so each one so it's not just the emotions.
No. No, no, no. Of course not. I don't think it's just the emotions, but there like for me in my book it's a big focus is emotions because I see
I
emotions
see.
are the charge. They
Yeah,
allow this transformation. It is the emotion, energy in motion, and
that's right.
we're able to channel, transform, and move on because of emotion. If we don't have emotions, we're not motivated to do anything.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. There's no motivation. In fact,
Yeah.
mover, to move, is the root of the word emotion.
Yeah.
And mover, to move, motivate is to move. And we
Yeah.
even say in English, when we feel something, oh, I was moved by that.
Yeah.
I was moved by your story.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
moved by that film.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I've looked up emotionless and
yeah,
it says dead
yeah,
in the
yeah.
really old dictionaries, even. So it's really connected. Emotion is connected to life and this
That's right.
change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, I think it's very important. Um, yeah, and I think another thing that's really important that linking chakras to emotions is for Western minds, it's important, Map, because we're so emotionally illiterate. We're so
Yeah.
repressed and we suppress so much of emotion and struggle, the struggle that comes along with the ambiguity of this movement.
Yeah, and emotions are movement of charge through the body.
Yeah, exactly.
And they move up and out.
Yeah, yeah, the expression of the
Yeah,
fifth chakra. And I think that's another thing that's kind of playing out right now. The fifth chakra has been shut down in the last 2 years because we weren't allowed to speak. We had masks on. There's a lot of censorship.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have one more thing that I found in your book that I thought was really important to share. Manifestation requires an acceptance of limitations. A
Mhm.
boundary allows us to contain and thus collect and build. But
Yeah, so think about boiling water in a pan on the stove. If you
mm-hmm,
put the lid on it and
mm-hmm,
that water is contained, it'll get hot faster. If you keep
mm-hmm,
the lid off, the heat's going to go out and it's going to take longer to boil.
mm-hmm,
So to manifest something is to say, I'm going to do this, which means I'm not going to do that. You know, if
mm-hmm.
I'm trying to finish a book, I'm not going to go to that party. I have to limit myself. And when I write a book, I want to put everything in it, but I can't. You have to say, no, we're just going to talk about this, or it's just going to be 200 pages or whatever, you have to limit in order to bring something into being. And I
Mm.
realized that when I was quite young, and I was a very free spirit, a Sagittarius, as we were talking before, and I didn't want any limits on me at all. And I didn't want the limits of a straight job, and I didn't want the limits of going to school. And I wasn't, I was broke all the time. And sure, I had a free life, but didn't really have freedom
Mm.
because I never had enough money to do anything. And I
Mm.
looked at my friends who were similar to me, and I said, these people are really smart and talented, but nobody's doing very well. Why? And I realized because we were so attached to freedom that we couldn't accept the limitation to manifest. And with that,
Oh,
I stopped what I was doing and I went back to school, and, I got
wow.
a job to support me while I was in school. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but it was just something to get me through, my graduate school. And once I could accept limitation, then I could actually get somewhere. And now
Wow.
I have more freedom than I ever did
Ever
back
had.
because I have the prosperity and I've flown all over the world and I make my own schedule, and, I've manifested the life I want. And
Beautiful.
that includes the freedom I want, but I had to accept limitation.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's so important. And I just learned that in my burnout. I was
Yeah,
I was still running after freedom at the age of 44,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we burn out without enough containment.
Yes. Yes.
And in the early days of my therapy training,
Mhm.
and we were doing bioenergetic and Reichian work, and we had, 40 people in a room doing rapid breathing and then screaming and yelling and kicking and crying and all that, because at that time everyone was very repressed. And we thought if people were getting it out, they were doing very good work. But, now there's a more detailed understanding of that.
Mm.
And so just getting something out isn't the whole thing,
Mm.
because that can leave you exhausted. It can
Mm.
scatter your energy, and there's not enough containment for the energy to build and go up to higher chakras.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
So we
really
want to
important.
feel an emotion. Some people just repress the emotion, they don't feel it at all, and they need to open up and let it flow and let themselves express. And other people are too expressive and they need to learn to contain the
Mm.
emotion.
Mm. Oh, that's
So
a good
yeah,
lesson.
I'm feeling angry, but I don't have to yell at you, or I'm feeling scared, but I don't have to run away, or I'm feeling sad, but I don't have to cry right now. I can just acknowledge that and feel the energy of it and the charge and feel where that charge wants to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really a lot of reparenting, isn't it? It's hard to
Yes.
reparent yourself.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have good role models as parents, that can be very difficult.
Yeah. 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 It's very interesting, everything. Yeah. And
Emotions
how
are
old were
basically,
you when you learned this, when you saw your friends and thought,
I was in my 20s. Yeah.
wow.
I was living in a back to the land community, living off the grid in the forest. A small community of, rebels, really. We were all rebelling against the status quo, against, and that was back in the 70s,
Wow.
early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you learned quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I realized I couldn't stay, I wouldn't get anywhere if I stayed in that life.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
now, and do you still long to live off grid or you live off grid?
No, I don't live off grid. I don't long for that anymore because, I need to be in touch with the world, with internet and all this. And when I lived off the grid, that was before cell phones were created.
Of
That
course.
was before the personal computer,
Yeah.
so we didn't have a phone, we didn't have electricity,
Hmm.
we didn't have anything.
Hmm.
I mean, I would charge my battery by driving into town, and then I'd hook up my battery to the house for electricity you know, and that was how we did it. So no, I don't have any desire to do that, but I do live pretty much in the country. I kind of live on the edge of
You
the
have the
urban
best of
development.
both worlds.
So
Yeah.
I have, a view of the river and the bay, and I have no houses in my view, so it's very nice. Yeah,
Very
it's a big
nice.
garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about your deck of cards. I'm
Oh, okay.
so
So
curious.
the most recent project, which I just sent to the printer this morning, just a few hours ago after
Wow.
2 to 3 years of working on it,
Wow.
is and it's completely different for me, but
Hmm.
it is something I've studied all my life, is archetypes of female empowerment.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I've created these cards. The spinner is the first of the three fates. Here's
Wow.
the activist who is working to change the world. Oh, this is the cover. It's called She Rises.
Oh, excellent.
Um, the cutter is the third of three fates. That's the one that says, nope, we got to cut down. We got to downsize the company. We need to stop.
Limitations.
Limitation, that's right. The maestro is the teacher, the
Wow.
initiator, initiates you into new things. Oh,
Did you do the artwork because you said you wanted to go to art college?
no, I worked with a woman named Melinda Matsell on the artwork. This is the
Wow.
shamana, the woman shaman, the empress,
Wow, beautiful.
the creatrix. I
Right.
love her.
Yeah.
She's painting the sky. The alchemist.
Oh, lovely.
And each one is, oh, here's me, the visionary, uh, the
Excellent.
oracle, the protectress, the
Texas.
empress, the
Wow.
counselor, of course, the angel
Ah,
of mercy.
wow. I like that you use really modern images as well.
Yeah. And of
Yeah.
course, we want to have fun, so we have the mistress of play
Excellent.
and the dancer, and of course, the mother
Wow.
and the healer. I mean, I could go on.
Yeah, but then you
Um,
see how many role models we play, you know?
that's right. And these archetypes have, what came to me is that women lead differently than men.
Mm,
And with only male archetypes to guide our leadership, we have a hard time being taken seriously unless we act like men. And
mm.
then, that's kind of hard on a woman's body. And women are saying that
Mind even.
they get burned out when they do that because they're trying to be something they're
We're
not.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have the testosterone to make us
Keep
compete
going.
really hard. So
Yeah.
when women do that, they burn out their adrenal glands.
Yeah.
So what I realized is women need different archetypes of leadership. And so some of these archetypes are ancient, like the oracle or the midwife or the priestess.
Hmm.
Um, some of them are just emerging, like the activist and the trailblazer and the athlete.
Yeah.
And some of them are just, we know them, the mother, the maiden, the crone, but they aren't honored. Some of them, like the maestra, the teacher, women as scholars don't get included in the studies. They don't get their papers, quoted. They don't get credit.
Oh,
They don't win the Nobel Prizes.
yeah, like Candace Pert, for
Yeah,
example.
like Canvas Pert, that's right, and they do important work. And so I look at all of these and in three voices, the I, which is the archetype speaking directly to you. I am the
Wow.
lover, and I am asking you to open your heart and enter into the mystery of relationship. And
Mm.
then there's the she part, which talks about how that's looked at in the world, maybe the historical significance, maybe the mythology, maybe it's statistics on, for instance, in art museums. Did you know that 87% of all the art in museums is done by men? And yet in art schools and art education, women are 60% of the graduates in art schools,
Wow.
but
Yes.
only 13% representation in museums. In the world of politics, out of 193 countries, only 22 women have ever led the country as a,
Country.
like a prime minister or a head of state.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just 11%.
It's
Um,
abominable.
yeah, you look at
Even I looked up
many people that,
gynecologists. Male
yeah,
gynecology was
that's right.
90% was male
That's
up
right.
until the 90s. And
Yeah.
even now it's only 60% that 60% are still male. So it's only 40% who are female. It's crazy.
Yeah, but people who graduate from graduate school in psychology,
Hmm.
60% are women. But even then, with more education, they earn $20,000 a year less than men. So I
Wow.
have all these statistics in there, and I tell about, how the imbalance is. In the midwife, once men took over the birthing process, infant death and mother death went up 41%.
Oh, wow.
Once the doctors put an end to midwifery and said, don't go to a midwife, come to the hospital. We're going to deliver 41% more death.
Oh, how
So I
terrible.
have these statistics in the she part, and
Oh,
then
great.
here's the yogini, and then there's the you part at the end. So when you work with this card or when you work with this archetype, um, like I say on the yogini, when you draw the card of the yogini, you are asked to regard your practice or teaching in a larger context as a spiritual conductor of transformation. And, so it goes on. So it's in those three voices, and they're all in the card.
Wow, yeah, I love it. It's really unique. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very new way into this new world. It's beautiful. I really love it. And it's really nice because in my book, I also write that each chakra is connected to one of the goddesses, the Hindu goddesses.
Yes.
And so you can see the goddess develop in her story, how she's working with these emotions and trying to find her way to be truthful to herself and to develop herself with integrity. Yeah. And I love that you're
using. Where
using.
do you put Kali?
Where did I put Kali? I didn't use Kali. I used Chinnamaste, which is also a form of Kali, but that's third eye.
Okay.
Getting rid of the ego. Yeah.
I'd be curious what you came up with there.
Yeah. No, I have Tara at the heart, Matangi at the throat. Who do we have at the belly? Parvati. And then we have Ganga and Lakshmi.
Ganga. Lakshmi at the base. I would put Durga in the third chakra.
Durga. Okay. Yeah, but with Parvati's also Durga in the stories. She's yeah,
that's fun. That's great.
Yeah, it is fun. I love doing it. It's very interesting. Myth is so inspiring, isn't it? It's so easy to relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, people love the chakras as an organizing system.
Yeah, that's the good term for it, organizing system. Yeah. Okay, Judith. See, I want to call you Judith again. Anodea. What's it mean, Anodea? What's your name mean?
Dea means goddess, and Ano means one of.
Oh, wow. Did you name yourself that, or that's?
I did. Judith was my first name, and I made it my last name. Anne was my middle name, and I added Dea, and I switched it around. And I did that back in the 70s, so it's been 50 years.
Okay. No going back.
No going back, yeah.
Only forward. Wow. One of the goddesses. How wonderful. How powerful to name yourself. Yes. Yeah, it is.
It really means one who serves the goddess.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, beautiful. Well, we are all one of the goddesses as women.
Goddess is every woman. She's in everything. Yeah.
Yes.
And the God too, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All reaching for to wake up the divine. That's the meaning of namaste.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you being on here. Is there anything else you still want to share with the listeners?
Well, I would just say that the chakras are also they're a formula for wholeness, but they are also a guide for cultural evolution. And that I believe we are now at the end of the third chakra era, moving into the heart. And though it may not look like that, if you read the news and you see the war and all that, but I think that is all the last gasp of the third chakra dominator era. Yeah. And we're seeing that it just doesn't work.
No. No, it's hard for people because they've invested their whole lives into that system. So it's really hard to relinquish, but I agree with you. There is more of us waking up to the love and the longing for social communities and togetherness. It's becoming very rudely awakened.
And the heart chakra is an organizing principle, just like power is an organizing principle. You can organize people by putting somebody on top that gives the orders and tells everybody else what to do, or you can organize people to collaborate and cooperate and be on a more equal footing, and then to combine, and that's the heart chakra organizing principle. That's the more democratic way.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And wonderful. You've really worked through
the old system and the new system right now.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to take? Can I ask you?
Well, I think we've been in this third chakra system for 5,000 years.
Yes, I
It's a
agree.
big transition. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, I know.
I am afraid that at my ripe age, I may not live long enough to see it really take place. But we are in the crumbling of the old system right now. And
Oh,
that's why everything's falling apart.
yes, I agree
Something
with
needs to
you.
be born.
I agree with you, but I'm following some astrologers just to give me some peace of mind. And they're saying like the worst is to come in the next year, and after it's going to get better. So I'm a little bit more optimistic that you will experience it, Judith, Anodea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's happening simultaneously. I mean, I already experience it. I already see people waking up and, working with love and, setting up
Mm,
things. But as far as it being the main sense of the world order, so that is really what organizes society as the major organizing principle. I don't think I'll see all of that in my lifetime. I'm seeing the destruction part before the new birth begins.
okay, the full formation. Okay, yeah, totally. Yeah,
But I
well,
do think we are going into the heart. And when you go to a new organizing principle, everything is so much more efficient and works better. It creates an era of prosperity
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
abundance and freedom. And yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think what I'm gathering, like I'm trying to follow a lot of different ideas and look back at history, and you see that moments of chaos are also birthing times of creativity to find new ways.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
of my books is on that. It's called The Global Heart Awakens.
Ah, okay.
It's all about the chakras and stages of history and this
Oh,
movement from what I call a movement from the love of power to the power of love.
oh, wow. I'm going to get that book.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I'm a fan, but I don't have all your books.
It was once in Dutch called Hart for the Wereld, but it's not in print anymore.
I don't mind. My Dutch is terrible. I grew up in
Oh,
Australia and I've traveled the
oh,
world. I just arrived here
okay.
a few years ago. So,
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Well, it's been
Thank you.
really wonderful to have you here, Anodea. Really, thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
thanks for the opportunity and blessings of the Rainbow Bridge on you and all your work and all the listeners. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you can
Blessings to
find me at
everyone.
AnodeaJudith.com.
Yeah, I'll put all your links in the show notes so you can send me.
Yeah.
We'll email each other for that.
And
Yeah.
several online self-paced courses. Okay. Thank you, Shira.
Wonderful. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. So, thank you everyone for staying to the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I really love doing these talks with these amazing people. And if you want to know more, just take a look in the show notes. There's plenty of links and ways to connect with either the guest or myself. If you want to work with us or find out more about us, just check out the information in the show notes. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend or week, and you'll be hearing from me next week. Bye.